and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode 485 for the week of Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. My name is Ryan Higgins, and assuming I have power through this entire episode and I'm not thrown into the Pacific Ocean due to incredible high winds and all the Bay Area just gets sucked up into a twister and we end up I don't know, off in Oz or something like that. This episode should go up on time. No late episode this week. Cue the blackout. Boom. There we go. What's happening? I'm Ryan. Who's here with me this week?
Brock Sager.
Kevin.
And Kevin.
Boy, howdy. It is windy. Yep. I mean, I can hear it. I can hear it very loudly, even with the headphones on. I don't know if the listeners can hear it. If you can, I apologize. Brock, I know you have stuff banging around outside your house. So
no, my house is actually banging. So I live in an old, a house that's over 100 years old, and so it has the old weighted windows that have the weights inside, and so they are banging up against each other.
Well, yeah. If you hear some random, I don't know, some random very loud noises in the back, crashes, wind, screaming, the normal. Just ignore it. It's fine. Everything's fine here.
Go about your business. Everything's fine.
We are going to get the spoilers right out of the way. So if you are not a WandaVision watcher, you may want to skip, let's say maybe half an hour.
Half an hour?
40 minutes. I wasn't expecting...
I was going to say 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, 10.
15
10 minutes for us, 15 minutes
Kevin's
for us.
Obviously new to the podcast,
but for new listeners...
I figured... I did not expect we'd talk about it every week, but after the first two, we had a lively conversation last week, and then after the third, definitely need to come back and talk. Hey, Kevin's here. I want to get Kevin's thoughts on WandaVision. But come back after that if you don't want to hear any spoilers. We're going to do questions. We have a bunch of questions from Twitter and Patreon, so we're going to go through some good stuff, and we'll get through all that later. Not a ton of news this week. No real comic-y news. And there's Charlie showing up late as usual. Charlie rolling in at the last minute. That's all right. It's okay, Charlie.
I check Facebook. I get tired of checking Facebook and move on to other things and then go back and go, oh, he finally
does 9 o'clock, 9:02. I will let you know if it's past that.
God, after you said 9:02, I wanted to 9:0210.
No, just 9:02. I'm usually pretty good about getting up right at 9. Charlie, we are going to talk spoilers here of WandaVision episode 3, and I want to get Kevin's full. And you were not on. Wait, no, yes, you did come on. No, you missed. No, yeah, you were on. Were you?
I was on last week, but I arrived even later than this time last week.
Yeah, okay. So anyone that wants to talk, we'll get their opinions. Talk is episode 3, and then we'll do some questions. So let's hit it, Kevin. I know we talked a little bit about it before you had watched 1 and 2 off air, but I wanted to get your takes. You have a discerning palate. Discerning palate? Is that the right word?
I'll take it. Yes, sure.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm very curious what you think about this.
Well, so I did not hear the conversation last week, so I don't know. This may be just retreading old ground. So sorry if I'm repeating anybody's thoughts verbatim or anything. I just have to say first that much like comics, movies, music, art, TV shows that were created before I was born are some of my favorite things. And so I really have a comfort food soft spot for shows like the Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched, Leave It to Beaver, shows of a certain era. I just find them comforting to watch. And so on a meta level, I really appreciate kind of the winks and nods that the show is doing towards those things. And I think it's really cleverly done. I'm talking about 1 and 2 right now. I think it's really cleverly done how you don't need to have those cultural reference points to still watch the show, and it could just be like a weird sitcom-y show, but it adds a whole extra layer of flavor to it with all of these little references baked in. So episode 1 and 2, I was very pleased, not only with that, but, and I know I had seen some criticisms that I hadn't really read in full because I didn't want to read anything before seeing the show. I didn't even know what the premise or the plot was or anything. People saying it's slow or it's boring or there's no action and things like that. And that's what I really appreciated. Aside from the TV references, it's like, did you really want to show Vision and Scarlet Witch teaming up to fight Hydra? Like, we've seen action in the movies. We've gotten, I feel like, a massive fill of it. And I love that Marvel can swing their dick around enough now at this point, Marvel Cinema, to just say,
stop you right there, Kevin.
yeah.
How much did Ryan pay you between?
You're saying exactly what I said.
Okay, well, I have one more sentence. I just really appreciate that they're doing something and going completely hard left when you would expect them to go to the right.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same.
Yeah. I just love that they took a chance, whether or not you think it's successful or like it. I just appreciate that they took a chance and did something different. I think that based on nothing except the previews, people who are complaining about WandaVision will probably get what they're after with the Winter Soldier and Falcon show.
Yeah, I mean, I think put WandaVision in the same realm as Legion, as Watchmen, the TV show, right? It's very unique. It's not like the rest of the shows. No, Legion I thought was not, I don't know. I'm just not connected to any of those characters. So it was interesting. It's a cool looking show, but it didn't work for me quite as well as some of the others. Watchmen is, I think hands down the best comic book TV show to date. Like, I don't even think there's a question.
I'll say one thing about episode 3 and then I'll tag out and you guys can jump in on it. Just one thought in general, no spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, who's listening.
For a while, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I want to hear what you guys say about 3, because this is where I shifted a little. I enjoyed 3, but I think now at this point, you've done the TV wink and nod, the sitcom kind of retread. I think it's now time to shift to another gear and move forward, because it could very easily get stale if that's just the show the whole way. So the end of 3 kind of gives me renewed hope for the show going forward.
I don't know anything. Again, I try not to read up too much on this, but there was some talk that episode 4 will be, again, I'm very paraphrasing here, like, those looking for answers and something that makes all this sort of work a little bit better. Episode 4 is the episode to watch. So
great.
This should maybe clarify a bunch of stuff, which is fine. I mean, they could have dragged this out for multiple seasons. I don't care, right? Like, it's really interesting.
It is interesting. I just think at some point you need to kind of put the plot engine in gear a little bit more.
Yeah. Now, we did talk about this last week. I need my Seinfeld episode. Okay. We need it. We already played out who all the characters are going to be. It's going to be great. Yeah. So we're due for a.
It'll be a Seinfeld Friends hybrid.
Yeah. So we got this was kind of the Brady Bunch. I mean, this episode 3 was. I mean, the Brady Bunch house. That whole layout exactly. The opening it wasn't exact, but it had the 9 panel, if you would, kind of grid at the beginning. You
also had, I think there was I just watched this last night. I think in the opening credits, there's also a Three's Company reference. Which was another thing of like, well, that's cool that you took the time to recreate that.
Yeah. I think the bigger conversation to have around episode 3 is just, I guess they're just going straight for the Young Avengers. We're getting the kids, all of them, pretty quick, probably. I think that's a bigger conversation, which we can have maybe later in the podcast or in another episode or something. But yeah, 3. I like the again that wacky hijinks of a sitcom. Obviously, based on my having theories is fun. You never know what's going to be right and what's going to be wrong. That's part of having a theory. I was never claiming that I had some inside knowledge or anything like that. Yeah, it does appear to be a real place, and they're not in the gem or anything like that. We still don't know a lot of the specifics around it. Like, so when other Captain Marvel gets booted out of there, it doesn't appear to me that the people that pull up are like working with her, because they pull up like guns drawn and everything. So I kind of read that as whatever happened, these people were sort of trapped inside this bubble area, and so the people outside, I'm assuming Sword, right? Are trying to figure out what's going on in there. So was Monica Rambeau like already in there for some reason? It doesn't seem like she was sent in, right? Because why would they be coming at her? Charlie, go ahead.
I would say she absolutely was sent in, considering she had the sword necklace.
Yeah, but why would they like draw guns on her and everything like that when she gets shot out of there?
Because they don't know what got shot out of the big giant bubble.
I mean,
yeah. Or if she's been compromised, like
maybe.
I don't know the specifics on why they'd be pulling guns on her, but I don't see any other reason why they would kind of make it very clear with the necklace that she's a member of Sword.
Yeah, she could have been undercover. She could have. So, Kevin, you may be able to. You maybe have read these more recently than some of us. Or actually read these. The Vision and Scarlet Witch, those original miniseries back in the 80s that this is taking from, right? I mean, the whole. So I don't think I ever read that first volume.
Yeah.
Which
I have not read that since buying it as issues off the stand.
But they, I know they kind of like the Vision comic, right? The Tom King one. They sort of did retire to like this town, and they were living in this area. It's not the same town that this is in, but it's a similar idea. It's very well that Scarlet Witch could have been just off living there, and they're like, well, she's crazy powerful. We as Sword should probably keep an eye on her. So these could be, all Sword members that were shacked up next to her, and they shit went down. This whole little town becomes, Wanda-ized, and they build that barrier around it. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense that she was sent in, but they may be like, okay, well, we know who you are now. So, but like, we'll see what happens.
I was just gonna say, like, part of what happened in episode 3 was there was an acknowledgement of the fact that she didn't quite fit in the town. Like, she didn't have a play. And if you look at like the first episode, she's new to town. Like, she and Wanda are both sort of the outsiders.
Yeah.
So my guess is she was sent in, and one way or another kind of was inserted into this reality. And I don't know how much she even necessarily remembers, similar to how occasionally there's a break where reality starts to sort of push through.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, she says at one point, she's like, oh, don't you remember Pietro getting killed by Ultron? And she's like, what?
Yeah.
So it's clear that the other people there know what's going on. They're just play acting for Vision and Scarlet Witch. At least some of them know.
So yeah, I was going to say, like, I get the impression some of them are more aware than others. Like, they're potentially even coming out of it. But, like, I don't necessarily think that they've always been aware of what's going on. So I'm curious to see how some of that plays out, because I don't think it's just everybody in this town has decided to pretend they're in a sitcom. I don't think that's what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way the things change so quickly, like, how would they know how to act? Mm-hmm. Right? I don't know. It's really interesting. It's a bit of a puzzle. I hope there's I hope it makes even if the answer is it's just Scarlet Witch altering reality, and what Charlie said, parts of them are sort of waking up occasionally, but they have no control over their actions a lot of the time, and their dress and their mannerisms and the things around them. Because we've seen trailers, right? I mean, we know.
Wait. I have seen no trailers. Don't say anything.
Well, you've seen nothing.
I've seen the still images, but I haven't seen any actual scenes.
You've seen Scarlet Witch like in her like Halloween costume.
Yeah.
All that. Yeah. So we're gonna. The episodes coming up. They look like 70s, 80s, 90s style shows. It's not all. I think this will continue going forward. I don't know. I don't maybe we're going to get like an Office style episode in a couple. I don't exactly know. Obviously, we have no idea. But I at least a couple more are going to look like these ones, which I think is really neat. Well, think of it. If you go 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, so that's 7 out of 9 episodes. I mean, you could basically go to like The Office and kind of cut it off there like 2010s and then have 2 episodes that are more normal.
Well, I think one thing that we don't know, and it's hard to conjecture, is why it's these different decades of TV sitcoms. So without knowing, like, could you, this is just pulling this out of thin air. I haven't read anything. Was she as an orphan in Europe watching these old American sitcoms as her reference point to what America looks like, and now they're being recreated?
That's how she learned English.
If that's R.I.P.
Reruns of Bewitched.
Yeah, R.I.P. her accent.
Sure.
Then we wouldn't get to The Office or anything like that, because then she would have been an adult.
Yeah, but she's still pretty young. The Office was a long ass time ago. Still, even now, like she's still like how old is Elizabeth Olsen?
Well, I don't disagree. I don't need you pointing out to me how long ago The Office was.
Maybe just the first season or two. Maybe just the first season.
This may be an obvious point that I just never thought about, but I heard a kid refer to Wanda as being the favorite superhero, Wanda Maximoff. Mm-hmm. But just recently, with since the show has started, but with no knowledge and having never heard the term Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. I mean, they never call her that, right?
Yeah, right. I was thinking they never referred to her as that in anything, right?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, it just never dawned on me till I heard it like a civilian be bad when I said, "Oh, the Scarlet Witch." It was just blank.
Yeah, whatnot. We talked about this last episode. I mean, Wanda in the movies and mostly in the show is not Scarlet Witch from the comic in almost any regard. There's almost no characterization, or we're only getting the barest of plots with the kid or with the kids. There's belief that the neighbor is Agatha Harkness, some version of. They show, like in one of the animated sequences, they show like a milk carton that says like Bova milk or something like that. But I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind if you think any of that stuff showing up in the show.
If you bring in Bova, you bring in the High Evolutionary, and now we're getting into some sweet territory.
And I just can't imagine in a million.
I think that's probably more just like a wink to the longtime fans.
Of course. And it's funny because a lot of people, there is serious conversation on the internet. Well, as serious as conversations on the internet can go, is that House of M was referenced as an influence for the TV show. Therefore, the end result of the show is they're going to introduce the X-Men into the MCU via WandaVision. And I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind if you think that's how they're going to do it now. Like, no. They will do that in... Not that WandaVision is not an important show or a big show, but no. They would not drop...
it's the only avenue they have currently.
So, do you think that they specifically wouldn't bring in the X-Men into the MCU, or do you think they wouldn't bring mutants into the MCU?
Well, she's not a mutant.
Because those are two different things.
In this, she's not a mutant.
I understand she's not a mutant, but what I'm saying is there's a very different scenario where they introduce the idea of a mutant and some lesser-known mutants through shows. They don't necessarily need to go directly to the full-on X-Men. They can always save that for movies.
Dan Slott,
but it doesn't mean they.
Dan Slott had a really good tweet today, and he mentions this regularly on Twitter. Okay, where he says, if he goes, I don't even. I'm going to. Very paraphrasing here what he said in the past, but he said publicly many times. He goes, I don't theorize about the MCU or DC movies or TV shows because even if he goes, I've worked on some stuff and I've known some stuff, and then I forget what I know, and even if I don't know anything, if I guess something right, people are going to think that I have some sort of insider knowledge, which I might or might not. He goes, so as a corporate rule, I will not publicly talk about any of this stuff beforehand, whether I know something or not, right? So with that in mind, he tweeted earlier today, I keep seeing fan and comic book websites theorizing about MCU properties that involve big, last act reveals of things from the comics that have yet to be set up in any of the 20-plus movies. Can you think of a single time they've done anything like that in the past 13 years of the MCU? And really, the only thing I can think of is, technically showing Thanos in Avengers, but he is set up throughout the movie in Avengers, right? So we don't know that until the very end of the movie. But through through Avengers, there is this mysterious figure that Loki and the
Chitauri,
are working with, and it's Thanos. So it is set up throughout the course of the movie. He may not be specifically talking here about WandaVision, but yeah, there is serious conversation of people like, they're going to introduce the X-Men. I gotta fucking introduce the X-Men in this. What's she going to do? Like, mutants exist. No, all the mutants. It's meaningless because it's not part of the show. It's not part of anything that's happened.
So, sorry to spoil it, Kevin. There's supposed to be talk of Petro coming back.
Yeah, but even if they do that because of this fictional world or whatnot, that doesn't mean anything because he's already existed. It would just mainly be a question of if the actor wants to reprise the role for some limited engagement.
Yeah, but the thing is if they brought him back, right, they don't have the access to... She doesn't have access to using the cube, right, to bring... Because that's what their powers were manipulated with in the first place. So they don't have that. So she would have to manipulate it, and that would be her manipulating it on a genetic level, which could potentially introduce mutants into the MCU, but not like full-blown X-Men. And the thing is, Ryan, you just said it yourself, they tease and tease and tease. They're going to use the TV shows to tease stuff for the movies because they've made the universe even bigger with it. You're good, Kev.
So I guess this is where the only way I would see them setting up any sort of thing is if they had a mutant that they wanted to use in one of the upcoming movies or TV shows. I agree they're not going to full-blown Charles Xavier, the X-Men, or Magneto, or anything like that. But that being said, a lot of this, for me, sort of depends on what they have planned for Doctor Strange 2, and we don't really know much of anything other than this leads into that because Wanda's in that also. So,
yeah, and I think the same applies with and no, Brock's thing was not a spoiler anyway because it's one of 1,000 characters that people have said maybe X will be in this show, right? And of course, Mephisto and Master Pandemonium and other characters have played roles from the comic books. Sure, it's possible they could use them in the show, but will they?
If we're betting money, I would bet much more money. I would say I would bet nothing on it being House of M, and I would bet much more money on Wanda creating the multiverse.
In this,
which opens the Doctor Strange movie.
That's possible. Yeah.
Like if you're thinking that the end of this series is some giant world-changing thing, and you have to bet on what that thing would be, I would bet, because you know that the Doctor Strange has multiverse in the title.
Right. More so than we lost Toby. More so than introducing mutants or bringing in Mephisto or
they've already introduced multiverses in the MCU with Doctor Strange.
Yeah, he's acknowledged like, I've looked into all the different
reality, where all the probabilities, right?
Yeah, he looked at the probabilities, but no, in the Doctor Strange movie, he went to different planes of existence, different realities. It might not be like a solid reality.
Multiverse, though.
Huh?
That's not really the multiverse, though.
Well, where did he battle the time guy at the end of the movie?
In Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
He's in... I don't remember where it took place, but was he not in?
So I don't disagree with Brock's point that they explored the other realms and whatnot other than an earthly realm kind of thing. But I think when we're talking the multiverse here, it's more of the alternate histories. It's more
it's the first class thing.
Parallel universe.
First class.
Yeah.
The parallel universe rather than
if anything, they're gonna introduce the multiverse in What If. That's what that is, right? Yeah, he fights Dormammu. I looked it up here. He fought him in the Dark Dimension.
So that the Dark Dimension's like from the old Ditko issues, where it's just like these different kind of astral realms.
Yeah, it's not hell, but they don't call it something like it's not like it's a. I mean, I'm looking at like the MCU. What do they call it? It's simply hell. It's basically just hell. So yeah,
it's going to be funny to see how good these takes are once the show is over.
It's a dimension in hell.
Go back and listen to this.
Well, people there was some theory. People were like, the what's her face? Agatha Harkness was like, or no, it wasn't her. No, it was that other lady she was talking to. She's like, the devil's in the details. Oh, that means Mephisto. It's like, okay, well, that's maybe just fan.
No, the devil in the details. The devil in the details line refers
to the other lady.
The fact that Wanda can't keep everything straight because she's trying to do everything.
Well, it of course it is not literally. It is not literally.
No, it's not. The devil.
The devil is here. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
I think the wink on that line is when she goes, "That's not the only place he is."
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about with the end, I think it's looking at it. I think something's happened in Westview because I think that she's manipulating a town. I don't think she created the town.
Yeah, I especially because of the way Sword. Again, I'm assuming that was Sword at the end, based off all the stuff they've shown. Because I missed if they had like decals on their jackets or it said Sword.
I didn't really see anything. It was just dark unmarked cars.
Yeah. The fact that they were all coming out after Captain Marvel, I figure Monica Rambeau, Captain. Well, I don't know what they're going to call her.
Photon.
Yeah. What's her other name? She had like 3 other names.
All I remember is Photon and Captain Marvel.
Like we were saying earlier, it felt like she was not aware, or they were not aware of what she was doing in there. So,
well, and the thing is if you look at that end scene, there's concrete roadblocks set up on the road.
Yeah, they've like set up like some sort of perimeter.
Yeah,
outside,
and they have pop-up stadium lighting to light the area where the disturbance is, right? Yeah. So I think that again, who knows what it is? We don't know for sure what Captain Marvel 2's role is in it. It could just be that they were like, something came out, what the heck, and they stormed it, right? Like to check what it was, and then they're, it's you? All right, well, what happened?
Yeah.
So,
well, that and assuming that people who go in there are trapped. We don't know how long she's been in there without any communication with the outside world and all that. So,
Well, and
I guess what I'm saying is, if you put this in relation to Shield, if a Shield agent went missing for even a few days with no contact and came blasting out of something, I'm sure Shield would show up with guns too.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know if I have any theory I have is always wrong. So I'm sure we're going to end with the introduction of mutants and the multiverse, and
Wanda will be the villain of Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah. That's
Throw that
another
one in.
theory, and I'm
Throw
like,
that
that
one in.
people keep talking about it. I'm like, why? Maybe, but why?
what if Doctor Strange is House of M?
I'm just gonna say, after decades of women going crazy in comic books for no real reason to be smacked around by their male counterparts, and then everything is just fine afterwards, I'm going to assume that might be something Disney actively tries to avoid. Maybe. I kind of get the feeling you may not see some of these stories go quite how they went in the comic books. We'll see. Good episode though, and yeah, for me completely. This week's episode may just completely answer everything, and it's kind of pretty straightforward after that. I would hope not, though. I like it being kind of weird and mysterious, and
You like weird and mysterious. You're a Twin Peaks guy.
I do. Yeah. I don't need like very specific answers for this type of stuff. I don't mind it being kind of weird and odd for a little while.
Well, I think the important thing is the show is at least thought provoking, right? Some of the theories might be batshit crazy, but at least it's getting people thinking. It's getting people talking. It's getting people engaged, right? Like, and when they're doing that, they're normally coming together, hopefully for a nice discourse. But the internet is not known for that.
Well, I even said like last week, and then kind of reiterated on the Facebook group. I was like, I don't care if my like theories are wrong. Like that's not what this is about. It's fun talking, right? It's fun kind of just having some thoughts of, because I again from the first episode, it's like, oh, they're in the gym. Like of course they're in the gym, because this weird time anomaly thing. She's trying to pull his soul out of the gem or whatever and get him back into his robot body. It's like, no, that's not what's going on. But it made as much sense as anything else. So
now, I have a quick question for everybody. It's just a yes or a no.
Whatever theories.
Do you currently think that Vision is real? Yes or no?
I mean,
currently, after what you've seen, just 3 episodes, do you think his character is real?
I would think he's there, but I don't think he's like. I would think she is controlling him, because he seems as pretty much oblivious
she's
to everything.
weak at burning him?
Well, because he. I don't think. I mean, it would be odd if they're like, "Oh yeah, we just put him back. He's back, off panel, off screen." Like that might be a little weird. And there's no reason she can't just be moving him, controlling him, doing whatever. They could have been, researching ways to bring him back, and that's what caused all this nonsense. So,
Kevin,
I don't know. I was just going to say, from my opinion, it depends on how you define there. And what I mean by that is, arguably, if Wanda's powers work kind of the way they do in the comic book and stuff, and she's manipulating reality and that kind of stuff, unless she sends him away in some form, he's there and will stick around. Just like bringing up the kids and that kind of stuff always kind of opens up this weird kind of, if they were generated by her powers, but now they're separate from her powers, well, then I guess they're as real as any other character in the MCU.
if they're still around.
that was one of the questions. And I think we kind of had mentioned this in other episodes too. If we now have Wiccan and Speed, because if they're going to have the kids, and I think I also said this last week, I said there's a 0% chance they will be magically aborted in the next couple episodes. So since we're getting the kids, I would guess super aging them at the end of the season makes sense. And then we have Hawkeye girl, Kate Bishop. We have Miss Marvel. We have coming up. We have Ironheart coming up. We have.
So we're doing champions?
Well, I mean, Young Avengers, right?
So
no Patriot yet, but that could be soon. We have Shuri. Who else?
In the Young Avengers?
Cassie Lang. So that's most of the.
Isn't the Skrull kid in there?
What Skrull kid?
The one that has like
Hulkling.
Oh, well, no, but I mean, he's not in anything yet. They're like, we don't have him. We don't have Patriot. The other characters, most of these other characters haven't been in anything, but they are coming, right? So
But I do find it interesting that if you think about it, like Patriot would be an easy potential add through like the Winter Soldier, Falcon show. Hulkling, you could kind of argue they could do something with like the She-Hulk show that's up like
Secret Invasion, right? I mean, yeah, he's like half girl, half Korean.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
Well, so
I mean, there's a lot of easy upcoming shows that could easily sneak in a introduction to other characters.
My theory, my thought here is, we are seemingly not going to have a reboot of the MCU anytime soon. We have the potential now for a second tier of Avengers with Captain Marvel, Black Panther in some form, I assume, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Ant-Man, Vision, Scarlet Witch. That's a legit She-Hulk if they want to bring her in. I mean, that's a legit Avengers team, right? Cap, Thor, and Iron Man are going to be gone soon enough, but or already are. So are we looking at 6 years down the road, 7 years down the road, a young Avengers team taking over, for the next 15 years after, right? Because you get a bunch of these kids and you can't have 60-year-old Jeremy Renner running around. Not really. I mean, you can, of course, but it's unlikely.
Well, see, what they're going to do is anyone that wants to stay and continue doing stuff in the MCU, they'll just get transitioned to the old man version of it. And then if it's a woman, it'll be the old lady version, right? So we'll get old man Hawkeye, we'll get old man Quill, we'll get old man, like, if they want to, right? They can just do that where it's like, hey, guess what? We just made them all old and
yeah,
it's this old guy with claws that comes through occasionally and says stuff. And
they're not gonna have, these $1 billion movie franchises they're letting lapse. They're not gonna shove a new Iron Man in. That's not like, they seem to be aging them naturally. I would think in order to have another Cap, Thor, and Iron Man, you would kind of have to reboot everything. But we were getting into comic book problems with the movies in that you want to introduce new characters. In the comic books, though, they can't age. They don't age. In the movies, these are real people. They will age. We're not going to end up in a situation where we're 3 Young Avengers movies in and Patriot is older than the actor playing a rebooted Captain America. So they either stick with this plan, which, I mean, it could be that the Avengers, the movies, stay the movies and the kids are all in the TV shows and they kind of don't really cross over. I mean, that's always possible, I suppose, because all the kids seem like they're coming on the shows. But I don't, like these. I can't see them giving up the Iron Man franchise, the Captain America, the Thor for like 20 years or something like that until they're at a place where they could reboot. Now they have the FF and they have the X-Men. That might be their their kind of safe space where they're like, okay, we're going to lose the Avenger movies because these actors can't play or won't play the roles anymore. But the FF and the X-Men can now be the replacement. So the movie line will be X-Men and FF. The TV shows will be the Young Avengers and other associated characters like Moon Knight, like She-Hulk, right? Maybe that's what they're going to do. They'll wrap up kind of phase 4, phase 5 will like wrap up the Avengers plot and move them out. But then, Kevin, we end up in a situation where the FF are, kids when the Avengers were formed. That's a bit of a... How does that sit with you? Hard?
Just do the time travel, do the other dimension. Yeah. Just give me anything except 4 ordinary people who suddenly get powers, and we get a whole movie of them testing out their powers and freaking out and then fighting a villain.
Well, I mean, that's what's going to happen. But are they like, oh, yeah, we were inspired by Ant-Man to become scientists?
Are you just trolling now?
Yes, but
that makes way more sense for the Young Avengers to be like, we were inspired by the older. Right. I mean, they've got to write a whole new origin for Hulkling, I guess, if they're going to use that character. Well,
like we said, I mean, obviously Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have no connection to their comic counterpart, right? It's a completely different character. Yeah. So sure. I mean, no insult to the Hulkling fans out there, but his origin is, I mean, it's barely a character. He's appeared in a handful of things. Like, there's some character traits that I think you got to stick with, but other than that, he's a blank slate, like most of these characters. So, Kate Bishop does not have 50 years of history. So she's got some stories. Don't get me wrong. There's stuff to draw from, but like, yeah, it's a. I don't expect those characters and those stories to be too similar to the comic versions either. Again, most of them aren't. Most of the MCU stuff has been very much their own take on the basics of the character. There's the origin and elements of the origin, and that's about it, and some character traits. But like plot lines are wholly unique for most of these movies. They barely share any connection with the comic counterparts of the stories. Which is fine. It's just they can do whatever they want. I would wince a bit if 2030 the FF movie rolls around and it's modern day to the Avengers now having retired and Mr. Fantastic is the same age as Wiccan and Hulkling. That would be odd.
Don't we have some questions?
Hey guys, you're forgetting.
I'm actually wondering assuming you acknowledge the fact that the Avengers were around at some point and whatnot, I'm wondering if it would work if they did a time jump where the Age of Heroes had ended and the FF start a new Age of Heroes.
They jump 20, 30 years in the future or something like that.
Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, I think, the X-Men having always been around is easy to have them just kind of be hidden. And I think you make the FF, they were part, they could be part of Stark's group. They could be rivals from the 60s and they go up into space and boom, time, not only the gamma rays hit them, but they go through a time storm and they land in 2028 and they pop out. I mean, I'd be okay with that. Questions, Kevin?
You asking if I have questions or if I want to answer?
Go ready for questions?
I'm ready. I'm very ready. Although that last thing you said is actually a good idea. It's full credit.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of...
You get the best of both worlds that way.
Yeah, you may not have the FF be inspirational to the rest of the characters, but at least... I think of like Smallville. It was a kind of an awkward situation where Superman's the last character to exist, not the first, right? That is, it's a product of what the show was trying to do, and I get it, but I don't think they expected to go on for 10 seasons and introduce like most of the DC universe into that show. I kind of forgive them for that. But if the MCU, they seem to be planning this obviously across television, movies, animation, 1,000 different formats. So I think
and time.
Yeah, and I think they have a much clearer plan. I think they're pretty confident.
But if they do that, then they're ushering in the new age, like you said. So they are bringing something. So
yeah, they might. Oh, or not. Man, I mean, they're not going to do it. But I think the X-Men. I don't even want an X-Men movie. The X-Men are way better suited for TV shows. I think the X-Men make a way better TV show because you can have your X-Men movies that are like big fight scenes or whatever, but the drama of the X-Men, the character interactions, they're way better suited for multiple television series. You could totally have like a mainstream X-Men lineup, 13 episode seasons, and like a New Mutants more younger lineup, and you could totally do a big crossover movie with them, big budget, $200 million. Massive Dark Phoenix saga. Like, hey, Kevin, maybe we'll do Dark Phoenix saga again. But do it right?
If they had multiple series build up with the good Phoenix in the series,
right,
and then a Dark Phoenix movie, I'd be fully on board.
I've seriously believed this for a long time that the X-Men are way better suited to a television show. I think most comic books are way better suited to a television show just because you have so much history to draw from and drama and character interaction that you really just scratch the surface in the movies. There's just, you don't get a lot of that. But the cast of the X-Men, I like the X-Men movies overall, but they imagine multiple seasons with like the like first class team. I think you could do a lot with that. Not that I don't want to see that exact same lineup, but it's, that idea sounds way better as a TV show than the movies because we know the characters, but I think the average person is going to be like, well, we're being told these things happen, but we don't really see them.
What are you talking about? You can have an X-Men TV show, an X-Force TV show, an X-Factor TV show, a Wolverine TV show.
Right, in the movies, right, in the movie, but I'm saying in the movies, like, you're really limited in time, and with that cast, most of those characters don't get anything but a passing glance, and like, oh, there's Jubilee doing a thing, cool, see ya later, you're in the background for 25 scenes, and that's it. You have 2 lines, you could have full character plots with everyone. All right, that was our 10 minutes, Kevin, 10 minutes on
you obviously know this show better than I do.
We can fill time and space and airwaves.
We got a bunch of questions. We can hit some on Patreon. From Tim. He says, do you have any comic book New Year's resolutions, runs you'd like to read, or things you'd like to accomplish in this year, 2021? Who has some New Year's resolutions? Because my New Year's resolution is always to read more comic books. That's a great resolution.
Well, but tell him a specific one.
Nah, just more comic books in general. That's good.
Cop out.
No, my legitimate, and I got about 25% of it last year. I would like to try to finish getting my comics reorganized this year. I did a bunch early in the pandemic, but I hit a bit of a wall because I did it a lot. I would like to get back on, and I've got quite a bit to go, but I've made good progress in getting my comics fully inventorized.
Now this is your inventory and rebagging and boarding?
Rebagging and boarding the old stuff, yep, and doing my inventory and getting all my long boxes converted over to shorts and getting all that stuff set up. I'm definitely going to be pushing the boundaries of the limit I have of space, so that will make the next few years interesting as I either do a massive purge or find ways to put up more shelving. But I'm gonna see what I can do. But that's my plan. I do want to get through that.
You can always get a warehouse storage and just make your comic book collection a warehouse.
Yeah.
I want to finish my reread of all the Claremont stuff that's out in hardcover or omnibus so far.
You've picked up a lot of it. Just haven't read enough.
Oh yeah, I've picked up a lot of it. I've read, reread some of it, read some of it for the first time probably. Yeah. Especially now that stuff like Excalibur has the omnibus out and New Mutants is getting the omnibus. And we have the volume 4 of Uncanny coming. Like, there's a lot of Claremont on the way, or I'm expecting more is going to be announced before
Yeah.
this year is done.
Well, we got
And you have the Inferno omnibus coming out. Like, there's so much.
yeah. Well, we were up to volume 4, I think, of the X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 4's going to be out soon.
Yeah,
not
yeah,
out yet.
yeah. Oh, but the Jim Lee ones, yeah, they're making good progress. That's a lot of it.
My New Year's resolution. I mean, I think I'm gonna want to do a purge of my graphic novel collection. Just kind of do a really good comb through and get rid of the fluff stuff that's just, finish up a couple of the big runs that I haven't finished Morning Glories. I haven't finished Wicked and Divine, but I have those. I'm like, I need to finish those. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of my goal this year.
Makes progress.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I will go with, let's see, 2020. I did a reread of Swamp Thing, The Invisibles, and Miracle Man.
Nice.
2021. I'm going to say I'm going to do a reread of American Flag for the first time in a long time.
I've never read any of that.
Oh, the first like 50 issues are just brilliant. And then I'm going to do a first time read for 2021. I'll just call it out here. A series I've never read but always wanted to is Strangers in Paradise.
Oh, okay. Should talk to our buddy Trevor. He's a huge
Trevor made sure to get me a copy of it, and I read the first one. It was good.
A ringing endorsement.
It's been so long since I read it. Like, it's just like I remember like being a little critical of it, and then reading it. No, this is actually enjoyable. So,
I remember reading a couple issues forever ago, but I have no real recollection of it. I didn't read enough to make any sort of opinion on it.
Next question for Toby. Do you got anything?
Hey, Toby's.
I just want to purge like a motherfucker.
There he is. Toby was gone. Purging is good. Everyone should do it.
Yeah, I think single issues are going away, except for covers.
Yeah.
Which, in my case, that's not saying a whole lot. But, yeah.
I mean, that has been a lot of what you've picked up the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, because I've been trying to go away from singles for years at this point.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I keep telling Charlie this because I'm trying to tell myself. So in telling Charlie, I'm trying to implement this in my own head. There's certain series I want to keep, like the Ultimate Spider-Man and maybe Moon Knight and the Dixon Nightwing and Birds of Prey stuff. All the other floppies I feel like need to go because they're just piling up. I mean, I love comics, but they're piling up everywhere in my house, like everywhere. I'm just kind of sick and tired of them at this point, and I'm sure the graphic novels and trades are not too far behind. I really need to figure shit out. But yeah, floppies, unless it's a specific run or specific covers or key issues, of course, but. Yeah, I think they need to go, and in ways, I think that's why I was so hardcore on getting into the Omni game, as I was kind of late to the party. Since Charlie kind of started it, I was against it because they're not my size. But in collecting the Omnis, mentally, I'm already kind of earmarking, like, look, I got this collection on the wall the way I prefer to read it. Like, it's easier to get to. Therefore, I don't need the singles. So it's like, in many ways, collecting the Omnis it's a first step at letting go of the singles.
Well, yeah, I definitely double up. A lot of the stuff I buy in trade is my favorite stuff for single issues. But a lot of people, I dump my singles and buy trades, my favorite stuff, and get rid of it. I only buy the trades now. Read digitally or whatever, right? And buy my favorite stuff in trade. So there's so. I think that's why all the available options are so good for the entire industry because you can read multiple ways. The old way was you had one way, the single issues on the spinner rack. If you missed it, fuck off. You're out of luck. You'll never find it again. Now it's like, the single issues, the trades, back issues, digital.
Well, I've done.
Limited. there's a billion ways to get this stuff.
Well,
So
it's funny
like,
because some of the singles I was collecting to bind eventually, right? Because I didn't think in a million years to ever publish this stuff.
yeah,
And boy, they're just about to print out any damn omnibus they can think of. I mean, The Crossing has an omnibus. I mean, it's like, I'm a little surprised, like, at some of the omnibuses are coming out versus what's not coming out. Like Jason Aaron's Thor. Come on now, Marvel! Like, it's time.
yeah, they will. They
Yeah,
will.
I mean, some of the stuff is given, but like the Burn Namor. I don't know why, but I thought that would never be an omnibus. So I was like, when that came out, I was like, fuck yeah.
Yes, very little at this point.
Yeah.
And DC's catching up. DC's released a lot of stuff recently.
Yeah, DC. I'm trying to discover. Like, I mean, I talked to Kevin offline with this quite a bit. Like, I'm trying to find the 70s and 80s stuff. The stuff I originally read as a kid, but because I read it in German, I have no idea, what era it actually is. I'm still trying to track that down. I know the Outsider stuff is definitely part of it, which was just released under Batman. But
they have the 3 hardcovers of the first run.
Yeah, I have those. Yeah.
But Toby's challenge is he was reading in all of these. Toby, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is right. All these like European collected editions where they just grab shit from a bunch of different sources.
Yeah. So like even like one issue would have like 2 Outsiders issues and 1 random Batman issue. So it's been a challenge, especially on the Superman stuff, where I do think the artist I'm trying to track down is Kurt Swan at this point, and because he drew so many issues and across eras that I'm like, man, that's going to be difficult to pinpoint where I actually want to collect or find. If I was a smarter person like Charlie, I would probably try to pinpoint that stuff in digital format first, which I haven't quite learned to do yet.
Well, I told you guys what I think I mentioned this before. What I think is happening, why we're getting so many crazy collections of stuff that never in a million years you'd think would ever get printed. Because they're digitizing their entire library for Marvel Unlimited and DC.
Yeah, it's already doing it. They might as well publish it.
Right, exactly. It's like 2 birds with 1 stone, right? I mean, we have to get this stuff digitized. The digitization process is half the problem of if we're going to recolor them and clean them up, why not also print them? The print runs you've seen on Marvel, the print runs are ridiculously low. They're not losing money. Everything's profitable because everything sells out immediately. They're not sitting on stock.
Yeah, and if they need to, they just put out another small print run. And
whatever the print run is for the stuff, they just crank them out and they go. There's no risk, and we're still, it's on Marvel Unlimited and Comixology, and boom, done. So I really believe that's what's happening. I don't know anything specific, but like, I bet if you look at kind of the schedule of how books are coming out on those platforms, and then look at what's coming out.
Just follow which collections are coming out.
Yeah, I bet you it's similar. I bet you there's a lot of crossover. Obviously it's going to be, you got to look months down the line. They could scan to have it digitally out the next week. It's going to take 7, 8 to 10 months for it to come out in a physical format. But I bet if you look at the way they have been released, it would not surprise me if it was similar.
I mean, even on the Spider-Man, right? There's 2 main eras I was reading when I was a kid. One was the 80s and 90s stuff, and then they had a classic line which was older, and I'm still trying to find that through the Epic collections. I'm thinking I'm getting closer because the art's starting to match. I'm getting closer on the era I'm trying to find. But like even like the Batman's like the Outsiders I found, but I didn't realize for so many years whenever you guys were talking about the old Batman Brave and the Bold, that's actually what I was reading all along. I just had no idea because they were just team up stories, and I just not too long ago figured out that's what that series is. So I picked up that first omnibus, but that's not it's, I guess that's earlier than what I was reading. So, I'm getting warmer and warmer on a lot of the stuff. I'm like, it's almost like a little puzzle I'm trying to undo. It's purging. As I'm talking about buying more stuff and finding more stuff, my main goal is to purge.
As long as
We'll
it's
dump into singles, make room for trades.
At least.
Another question.
That question took 15 minutes. Let's hit it. We got to.
Another question from Mario. He says, do you guys think that Bendis will be able to recapture some of that old New Avengers era magic when he takes over Justice League in March? I don't know, man. You got to remember, go back.
Say I love Bendis, but what did he say about New Avengers like magic?
Recapture some of that old New Avengers magic.
Yeah, that was not magic. I'm sorry.
Man, Toby, you got to remember, you need to go back to like, what was it, 2004, 2005 when New Avengers came out? That changed Marvel. That series was so big.
Mm.
That was Bendis at the peak of his game, man. New Avengers was a big fucking deal. That took down the X-Men. I mean, that was when the X-Men, New Avengers has outsold the X-Men almost ever since.
I would say Spider-Woman in her skin-tight outfit outsold the X-Men. Drawn by David Finch.
I mean, that certainly helped.
A lot, trust me. Yeah.
I mean, I think
especially in an era where the Batgirls of the 90s are gone, having Spider-Woman back on the covers in that outfit, yeah, sorry, X-Men, you're done.
I mean, his Justice League team is very unique. I want to see what he's going to do with Hippolyta on the team. That's really cool. I hope the Justice League book is sold very well from New 52 to now. I mean, it's been a good seller. It's had good creative teams.
It's had Johns. It's had Snyder.
Yeah, most of the runs have been good. Yeah. Snyder's run is real popular.
Don't get me wrong. I actually really love Bendis. I was not personally. I'm just saying personally. I was not a big fan of New Avengers stuff, so I'm a little worried about the Justice League stuff. I like single little characters for some reason, but not on.
I mean, I read but actively hated New Avengers when it started because I'm like, this is not the Avengers. What is this nonsense? But man, after a while, I couldn't. I liked it. It's different because I love the classic Avengers. I love the classic lineup, but it worked. He did a good job. Spider-Man and Wolverine and all those characters together, like he was able to pull it off. A lot of other people haven't. They've tried and it hasn't worked. Uncanny Avengers and some of those other crossover team ups have all been nonsense. But Bendis had the chops to make that team work, and I think his New Avengers run holds up.
Well, I think it's the top tier of the families, right? It's the Spider-Man family, it's the Wolverine, right? It's all those top tier characters. Let's make them the Avengers and see where it goes and see what happens. Because a lot of that stuff is really, really good. And then a lot of his like Defenders and Jessica Jones and all that stuff came, like he brought him in later to kind of more to give wider exposure to those characters. But overall, I mean, I think it started out really well. I think it bombed horribly towards the end because I remember not liking it as much, and Siege was really bad.
Well, endless crossovers, and people's problem with Bendis is finishing stories. That tends to be a weak spot of his, but he's great at characterization. So Justice League is all about character. It's either. Well, let me phrase that. Justice League is either about one of two things: the character interactions or the big fight scenes. He's really good at the character interactions. So I'm excited to see what he does with Justice League. It should be different. Finally, not finally, but last Patreon question from Gilbert. He has recently had to close down my pull box list at the comic shop because of money and timing issues. I didn't have anything on my box, but I felt bad because I know they order 3 weeks in advance. I'm planning on going back regularly again in a couple months, but I only want to buy independent comics since I will be using Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe. The question is, should I open a pull box again and do a pre-order? And what's the best way to buy indie comics? Gilbert, you 100% should open a pull box if it's only for indie comics. Every store is different, but generally speaking, those are going to be the lowest ordered comics. I can't tell you how many customers we've gone through and they're like, hey, do you not order this? I'm like, well, we ordered like 5 copies of number 1. I sold 1. And then I sold 0 copies of 2, so I never ordered the book again. I mean, that happens with Marvel and DC occasionally, but pretty rarely. With indie comics, that's unfortunately for us 75% of them. I mean, there isn't enough money and space on the shelf for everything.
Well, and I just looked at the solicitations for previews for Image coming out. Holy crap! There's a lot of number ones coming down the pipeline from Image.
And look, if your books are Saga and like Something is Killing the Children, you're probably okay. You probably don't have to. If you're talking like deep catalog, not on FOC, like small press, then yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming you left in good good favors of the store. If you had nothing in your pull box, that's fine. Some stores may request that you continue to purchase everything they have on order for you, but so you may have a couple weeks worth of stuff. Some stores, we don't, unless it's something really specific. But yeah, as long as you've canceled and they're okay with you didn't screw them over or anything like that. Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't let you back. So, but absolutely, pre-order independent.
We do mail order if you're interested.
We do, and if your store is a Comic Hub store, why? What a fantastic way to get all your comic books pre-ordered through the wonderful Comic Hub app. I know a lot of work being done in the back end. We got a lot of updates in the last few weeks. A couple more questions. One from Brandon on Twitter. He says, when will they start rumors about a Superman the Animated Series revival? Now, there is a rumor that they are going to revive Batman the Animated Series, which could be good. I don't know. I don't know if I need that. I would rather they do something else, but I guess if they have some of the same voice actors and the same people involved, and they stick with the earlier animation style and not the later animation style, I'd have no problem with more episodes of Batman the Animated Series. But I'm always afraid to go back to that stuff because it's never as good when they try it again.
So I guess my mentality on this, especially with what's been going on with the comic and then like the action figures and stuff they've been putting out, is I kind of feel like they're already playing around with stories that they could adapt to a new animated series. I don't think it necessarily needs to be like, we're commissioning another 100 episodes or something.
Right.
But if they wanted to do like another 10 episode limited series, see how that does, and then do another 10 episode or whatnot, I think if they go sort of the quality over quantity, that will be perfectly fine with me.
I'm surprised they don't do like a series of movies, like
that would be amazing.
Animated movies, but just straight Batman the Animated Series, animated, like Massive Phantasm and everything.
And I know they tested the water a little bit with the what was it called? The Justice League one they did, where they brought like the Justice League Unlimited voice cast back together for the Legion of Superheroes one. What was that? Fatal 5? Sorry, my brain's spacing on the name of the direct-to-video they did. So, I mean, they've definitely have played around with the notion of bringing back some of the people from sort of the Timverse and stuff in other forms. And, I mean, Bruce Timm is still doing animated features with them now, because he did that Soul of the Dragon, I think it's called, that just came out.
Is that him?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I mean, it's not like the Batman the Animated Series style or anything, but it's still like produced from Bruce Timm.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Brandon also says, is Ed Asner's Granny Goodness the best voice casting outside of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill in the animated universe? I will agree with that. That is fantastic casting. One of the best. Almost as good as who played Mxyzptlk?
Was that
Oh my God!
Was it Gilbert Gottfried?
Gilbert Gottfried. Thank you, Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, that's the gold standard.
That's top. That's S rank. Okay, that is top tier.
Yeah.
Top tier.
Okay. If I read that character now with that voice, okay.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whole new level opens up.
Yep, it's so good. From Mr. Sinista. He says, as always in cinema, there are trends. Comic movies are still hot, which help boost sales due to people interested in the characters and the heavy speculator market. What happens to the comic industry once comic movies fade and are replaced with other inspiration? I mean, it could happen eventually, right? But the superhero genre may fade out, but that's like asking when they're going to stop making movies based on books at this point. I would think the independent stuff will continue to be strong. And even with the superhero movies, I mean, you're talking about some of the highest grossing movies in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s are comic book movies. It's been 60 years from Superman to Batman to now. They're the biggest movies. They're some of the biggest movies that Hollywood have ever made. And they are the biggest movies now, right? So half of cinema's history, comic book movies have been at the top of the charts. Of course, DC could fade away, the MCU could go away, and people could get bored with it 70 movies in or whatever like that. But like, that's still a long. Like, I don't know why they would ever stop it. You know, yeah, characters may come and go, but like, I think if there's a Batman movie in 30 more years, it's still going to be super popular. So
I have a semi-related question for the group on that, just because it's when the first Iron Man movie came out, I don't think that necessarily translated to a big bump in like Iron Man comic sales or anything. But
there really isn't a lot of translation to the superhero comics.
Well, but here's sort of the distinction that I'm kind of thinking about, and kind of what I'm curious to, because I would say that the Iron Man movie's success, though, paved the way for Iron Man playing a bigger part in the comics, and from that got better creative teams, from that got better sales, but it wasn't in relation specifically to like the first Iron Man movie. It was sort of an effect over time. I feel like the same way could be said about a lot of these characters from Marvel, where their status, even from like the comic books, changes drastically, not right when the movie comes out, but over time based on sort of the overall push that character gets from sort of multiple movies and everything else. I guess that's my long drawn out way of saying, do you feel like where the movies, especially as we talked about with Iron Man taking less of a role in the Marvel movies going forward and them shifting to Fantastic Four, that kind of thing, once they're around Fantastic Four 3, does Fantastic Four dethrone Avengers in terms of sales? Like, where do you feel like the actual influence on the sales of the comics, is it because of the creative shift and focus shift, or do you feel like it's just a delayed reaction from the popularity of the movies?
But, you know, Iron Man hasn't never really topped the charts, and Captain America rarely does, and Hulk doesn't really. You know, I mean, it.
No, but I guess what I'm wondering
They will
is,
put better teams on the books, but it.
And I guess I'm not 100% sure how it's. I do kind of feel like from a Marvel pushing the Iron Man comic, it absolutely has had some better creative teams on it since the movies started coming out.
Sure.
And I would assume if you looked at sort of a trend of the Iron Man comic, since the first movie to now, the sales of Iron Man placed much higher on the charts than it did right after the movie, right after Iron Man 2, but I would assume by Iron Man 3, you would see a definite sort of increase overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I would want to go back and look at the numbers. I mean, there was a big push. The Matt Fraction run of Iron Man was really that was after Iron Man 1. That was a big deal. So they've had big creative teams on Iron Man, but the sales tend to not really stick around. I mean, I think the big books are still going to sell. The X-Men books sell just as well when Dark Phoenix and whatever, fucking the Days of Future Past are coming out as it does when Logan's coming out or X2, right? I mean, yeah, there can be focus on it, but I think overall the comic books try to do their own thing. There should be synergy, I mean, if you've got a big X-Men movie come out, you should have a good top tier X-Men creative team on at the same time, but they kind of don't run in parallel. They sort of do their own thing, which is fine. But yeah, clearly Iron Man has been in more comic books. I would think Iron Man has made more appearances in in comic books since 2008 to now than probably 1962 to 2008, because he would have been in his own comic. He would have been in Avengers, and that's that's really it,
No,
right?
he would have popped up in Spider-Man or occasionally.
But
Well, he'd pop up in like Marvel Team Up or Marvel 2-in-1.
Yeah.
once,
Yeah, like twice a year.
yeah. Whereas Tony Stark is in 7 to 8 Avengers books a month. He's in every solo team spinoff. It has Tony Stark involved because he's now Tony Stark, the guy that runs the Marvel universe. He's in every event, right? I mean, yeah, it would not surprise me if there's been more appearances of the character in the last 15 years than there was in the 40 years prior. But that wouldn't be the case, I would say, with like Wolverine. Clearly, Wolverine was just as prominent in the 90s as he was, with no movie, as he was in the 2000s with multiple.
Yeah. I guess
Batman,
that's
same thing, right?
like, I kind of feel like when it comes to, and I was talking a little bit about this after the question last week about sort of favorite Avengers or what the best Avenger comic was, is like, part of the reason why I've always gravitated towards certain things has always been sort of that synergy with what I was enjoying on TV and that kind of stuff. Like Batman's perpetually been on TV in some form between Super Friends, 66, like all that kind of stuff. I was heavily exposed to as a kid.
Yeah.
X-Men had the 90s show. I remember watching some appearances of the X-Men in the old Spider-Man show. I had a huge love of Spider-Man because of the old Spider-Man cartoons and that kind of stuff. I kind of feel like a lot of what Marvel's done really well is with their movies and with the Avengers and Iron Man and Thor and that kind of stuff is part of the reason why I have trouble answering like what the best Avengers story is or whatnot is because I didn't gravitate towards that. But I can absolutely imagine kids nowadays would absolutely gravitate towards a Avengers book or an Iron Man book or that kind of stuff if they're going to look into comic books and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, and they'll know those.
So I'm mainly... Yeah, and I guess I'm mainly thinking in terms of a long-term impact of the success of the comic book industry. Like, I feel like we've already started to see some of that, and I don't know how much of it is familiarity, how much of it's creative teams, like how much of it is a forced synergy between propping up the Avengers to be a more important team to the Marvel Universe than it even was prior. And it was always an important team. I'm not saying it wasn't. But I feel like, especially when you take the X-Men out of the equation, the Fantastic Four out of the equation, like it was for a long time in the comic books, the Avengers book became the everything tilts with Avengers.
Right.
Versus, I feel like for a long time, everything was tilting with X-Men or everything was tilting with Fantastic Four or some of these other.
The Avengers 100% replaced X-Men as the kind of the main lead of the event. I mean, remember, Avengers was a shitty comic book that nobody cared about, and nobody cared about any of the characters for decades. So, we might have, but they were not sales juggernauts at all. It was X-Men. Everything was X-Men and Spider-Man. And the X-Men really, for a long time, kind of drifted away in the 2000s.
Okay, so I guess all I'm basically shifting my opinion on a little bit because a lot of times we talk about how, other than like the trades of Infinity Gauntlet, it's not like there was a huge bump in Avengers comic sales with Infinity War and that stuff, but trades of Infinity Gauntlet went through the roof.
But that's what I was saying earlier. New Avengers, like I said, really don't think there would have been an Avengers movie if it wasn't for New Avengers. I think, well, they had the characters, so they obviously had those are the characters they could use. But man, I think New Avengers gave Marvel the idea to take a risk and do something with these characters because it really did kick those characters in the high gear in a way that Ultimates and New Avengers, but I think that those books, the MCU owes a lot to Bendis and Mark Miller. Last time you heard me say that, for really kickstarting those characters because I love the Heroes Reborn stuff, but I mean it's still kind of old school and wasn't really gonna change anyone's perceptions on these characters. Look, I mean, major chunks of that of that Avengers run was about 3D Man, and Triathlon. I mean, come on, these characters aren't gonna set the world on fire, But Ultimates and
I really kind of felt like just going "who" as you were saying that, just because.
Ultimates and New Avengers really, really changed things at Marvel for those characters. I feel like that's the case. It just seems like everything shifted at that point. So, got a couple more questions. A few more here before we go.
Rapid fire.
This one. So I want maybe some explanation from hardcore fans that can tell me, that can explain this to me, because I always, in most cases, when people say, "Oh, Company X hates their own character," I usually roll my eyes at that because it almost never makes any sense. Even when I understand that Dan Didio at points was like he didn't want Wally and Nightwing and stuff like that. I mean, but these characters still existed and were published. So I'm coming at that from this perspective. So this is from Mega Ball, Bale, Mega Ball on Twitter. He says, "Why does Warner and DC Comics hate Jonathan Kent so much?" Jonathan Kent, who is a fairly new creation, who is in main character in Brian Michael Bendis' Superman, who is in multiple Super Sons comics, who's the ongoing, the miniseries, and now the new series, which takes place with the younger Jonathan Kent. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Kent that is now in the Legion of Superheroes, and Jonathan Kent that is going to be in the Superman and Lois television show.
Hey, don't forget the Jonathan Kent from Deceased.
And he's in Deceased too as Superman. Correct. He's a main player in Deceased. I don't think DC hates Jonathan Kent. He's all over the fucking place. What kind of question is that? I mean, I know some people don't like the aging up that Bendis did. If that's your problem, okay. I don't have. I mean, they wanted to make the character a little bit older. Whatever. It doesn't bother me either way. It's still a fun character. But if they hated him, he wouldn't be in 12 projects currently. So I don't think they hate him. I think they made him, and they're like, "This is a popular character. Let's do stuff with him."
That question didn't have a winking emoji next to it.
No.
Okay.
I mean, it may not be what you want out of the character, but I don't think DC hates him. He's in multiple comics.
No, they're talking about Jonathan Kent, the kid, not.
They're technically. Hasn't there already been a live action version? Wasn't she? Did Lois have the baby in Crisis, or she was taught, or they said she was pregnant? Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah, no.
Well, Superman and Lois went off world because she was pregnant. That's why they were living on.
Okay, she didn't have the kid though, right? Not yet.
I'm trying to remember if
I can't remember.
I would have thought she would have had to have had the kid.
Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway,
we're going to get. So you guys know. Remember when we had CW shows?
Yeah, well, Batwoman's back on.
Yeah.
It's okay. First episode was all right. I'll give this new girl some time. It's it's a new take. We'll see what they do with it. But yeah, they're coming back. Yeah, Flash is on. Superman and Lois is really soon. It's month and change, I think. Flash is right after that. All the shows come back soon. Question from Stefano. He says, "I've always been curious how does damaged comic books work as far as how when you're processing specifically, so some books you only order for subscribers. Do they overprint to supply for damage replacements?" So little behind the counter info here. So we don't order. He also says, "Do you order for subscribers plus shelf copies or whatever?" So all depends on the book. When books are damaged, we can report them as damaged, and most are replaced. Sometimes they can't be. The times when they can't be is frustrating because especially if it's a book that we only order for subscriber and we have no additional copies. We had a bunch of the Future State books. They've been having some printer issues. DC with stuff like it's not drying, the ink's not drying, and they're getting really scuffed on the front covers. 3 of our books had it this week. I think not 3 issues, 3 series. 10 copies of Our Legion had it, like a whole bunch of copies of some of the other books. The last 4 or 5 weeks we've had this regularly. So all that does, we have enough copies, so that just takes down our shelf copies, but we hopefully eventually get replacements within a couple weeks. But yeah, if you're a small press and they ship the book and the book gets all fucked up, like, we're out. And they sold out, we can't get it at that point. So there's just nothing we can do. But, we'll try to track down copies if it's something that, like I've had one customer that's gotten like Ninja High School for fucking 30 years from us. And it's the only subscriber. And once in a great while, we've had a problem where we can't get the copy. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to go find a copy of this from somewhere and buy it for him just so he gets his issue. So he continues to buy this from me. Oh, yeah. But most of the time we can get replacements. Most of the time. You just got to...
Well, doesn't DC normally print like a little extra for damages and shortages and stuff like that?
They do, but there's not always enough, and sometimes there's not. We don't get the first people report them get replacements, and if I'm the 10th person and they only have enough for 9, then I don't get them. But generally, like I said, we are able to get them.
Marvel just says there's a second print coming.
So for some stuff, yeah. I got 2 left. Here. This is from Prison Gray on Twitter. He says, I'm reading Justice League International by Giffen right now on DC Universe Infinite. Nice. Oh, and yeah, if you haven't switched over, DC Universe Infinite is now up. I find the animation between panels not as smooth as it was before. I thought that's a little weird. I don't know. Maybe there's an update. Maybe that's just my phone. But the layout's exactly the same as before. The color scheme is a little bit different, but overall it's the same. If you had DC Universe and now you have Infinite, it's basically the same.
Well, but they did update the catalog to basically, if you were reading on DC Universe and you were at a certain point in a comic, you probably have another 6 to 8 issues of said comic that you can catch up on now.
Yeah. There's because they jumped from a year to 6 months, and they've added more stuff. So a lot of Black Label, a lot of Vertigo's on there, and there's going to be a good grip of old stuff coming through pretty regularly. Says I'm reading Justice League International from right after Crisis. So yep, that's Justice League number 1. What other essential Justice League runs from that era should I read aside from JLA, the Morrison JLA, and current stuff? He's looking for old stuff. I do have a gripe about Justice League, about DC Universe Infinite. At least on my phone, it's listed under the app called Infinite. I think that's very weird. I don't know why. I'm gonna do this. Fuck it, we're doing it live. I'm gonna look here real quick. I actually I don't know if you guys noticed, they have the browsing is actually done by age. So they have like Bronze Age, Golden Age, Silver Age. What Justice League books do they have on DC Universe? Let's check.
Well, he's reading the JLI, I assume, right? That's what he said.
So they have the Justice League America, right? They have kind of the whole thing. I would say if you're reading that, definitely read Suicide Squad at the same time. They have the entire series up here.
There's also Justice League Europe,
right,
in that era.
Yeah, I would think it's hard to see because the stuff isn't really it's kind of in order. But you can bounce back and forth between Justice League Europe, all that stuff. See, Justice League Europe, they only have 14 issues on here.
Well, that's still 14 issues, right? That's a year's worth of comics.
Yeah, that's the start of it. Yeah, hopefully that they add more to it. But yeah, you can read Justice League straight through. Post Giffen and Demetrius,
Justice Society.
That book's not great. There's a couple of Justice Society minis. They have at least one of them on here that comes out around the same time.
So I think technically he should also, or not should, could also read Legends, which introduced that Giffen and DeMatteis.
That's right prior.
That's right prior to it. Yeah.
Amanda Waller and
the Suicide Squad too. Yeah.
Now here's a question. I should do a search. What is the Midsummer?
Oh, it's a Midsummer Night's something.
Yeah, let me see if they have a Justice League. I can't spell. So there was a Justice League miniseries prior to the launch of JLA called Justice League Midsummer Nightmare. So even if you've read JLA, the Morrison stuff, read that because that's a direct lead in to his run. It's not written by him. It's written by...
It's Mark Waid and Fabian Nietzsche, isn't it, right?
Yeah. Right. But that is a direct lead in to his run. Whoa! It's gonna like blow our fucking house down. Like it is bad outside. It is bad. I highly recommend Justice League: The Nail.
Yes, absolutely.
And another nail.
Yeah.
There's the 2 volumes. It's a Elseworld, but it's a cool story.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like there's definitely some.
There's also the Morrison Earth 2 graphic novel that's in there.
Yeah, if that's not in there, what they do have here, and they have the full storyline, DC 1 Million.
Yep.
If you even again, Grant Morrison JLA era, but not part of Justice League. It is a Justice League story, but it is not part of his Justice League run. And they have all the crossovers too, so you can get a chronological list there, and read through Justice League.
How muscular the characters were during that time.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff in here. The Giffen Demetrius run runs directly into, or it becomes other people take it over. It becomes really bad. The Death of Superman issues are fine, but past that, it's trash. But that goes straight into the JLA run. So like that's everything. Post Crisis, it's just that. Justice League, if they have them on there, I close the app, but I can go check. Justice League Quarterly as well. That no, the Justice League Antarctica was an annual. It was an annual, right? Yes. That's a great issue. It's a great issue with Nort. Oh, I love it. Love it so much.
They had a bunch of Elseworlds for Justice
a lot of Elseworlds. Yeah, which are the Nail. Read the Nail.
The Nail's the best one, and the Earth 2, I guess, is technically an Elseworld.
Yeah.
No, Earth 2 is part of Morrison's run. That's totally in continuity. So is Justice League Wildcats. That is 100% in Morrison's continuity. Okay. Yeah. Those are. I mean, they're Elseworlds now, I guess.
Right. But that's what I was meaning now.
Yeah. Okay. No, they are fully in his continuity. Yeah, they're 100% in Morrison's connect the history arcs. It's just a super weird thing about Justice League Wildcats. That whole mini is like, or that one shot. It's like this totally is part of your main regular storyline. Like, how did you get away? Like, how did they let this happen?
Right.
Weird. Final one from Jesse. And we're gonna wrap up here. I know we had a couple questions we didn't get to, but hopefully next week we'll get to a few more. Jesse says, I'm currently reading the Absolute edition of Swamp Thing, and it got me thinking. Can all pick one? What is the best a comic book has looked, in your opinion? Not the best looking comic, but like those Absolute editions are beautiful.
Yeah.
What's the best these things have looked to you?
Mine will be the Absolute Arkham Asylum, which is just set aside your thoughts on Morrison, set aside your thoughts on Weird Batman. As a work of art, that thing is like museum quality.
And it's big. It's you never see Dan McKeon's art like that.
Nope, you never do, and it's a treasure.
I haven't cracked it open yet, but I'm just happy I have it in the best form. Day Tripper, Absolute Day Tripper.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's I can visualize how that art would pop more in that format.
It's not. Well, I mean, I could go to the Absolute, but it's in multiple formats. But seeing J.H. Williams' Sandman Overture art in its bigger, as big as possible printed format.
To get that one. I haven't gotten that Absolute yet.
It's gorgeous, and man. The detail in that stuff, like I want DC to have the balls, or Marvel. Marvel has actually with these like that Jim Lee XXL and that Eternals book we have at the shop for that customer.
And like the monster size
I want
I hate that Eternals book. I've had to move it like 4 times. I'm like, ugh.
I want to see those. I mean, that's like as big as the printed as the drawn pages, but fully inked and colored and done. Right. I mean, I wanted to go even that big, like Toshin size, like those Toshin books. Like, give me something like that. Like, just go big, DC, go big, Marvel, do more of this.
You're just a guy that likes to play big chess.
Well, I mean, it is equivalent to the size of the original art. That's as good as you're going to get. I know some people have picked up that Jim Lee XXL. I want to see one of those open because I'm sure it's gorgeous.
Charlie's got to be thinking between 2 items, I'm going to guess.
Okay, what 2 items do you think I'm thinking between?
Marvels or Kingdom Come?
So, the Monster Size Marvels wins, but that's just because, as you and I have talked about, the way the Kingdom Come art kind of looks blown up.
Yeah.
And the Absolute and stuff sort of takes away from that. Now, mind you, the Absolute Justice, like that one looks amazing. Or if you go with like the World's Greatest Superheroes, the Alex Ross Paul Dini collection that they did, and I don't think that was technically called Absolute, but I don't. The slipcase of that is beautiful also. Like the art in those books look phenomenal. So yeah, it would be between like the Absolute Justice and the Monster Size Marvels.
So you're basically telling us anything Absolute Alex Ross. Got it.
Well, except Kingdom Come, but again, that's because I have my own suspicions on why that doesn't look as good. Honestly, though, some of the like Platinum Edition, that kind of stuff that Marvel's put out, also look amazing. Like the King Size Kirby is an amazing book, and like the Absolute Fourth. See, a question like this, I could just keep going on. It's always looking around my house, just going like, but that's and like the Azzarello Absolute Joker Luther. Those are I could be here a while.
Toby, still here? Got a favorite?
What's the question?
Not the best that a comic necessarily is, but the best presentation. We've all sort of defaulted to the Absolutes or those big Marvel editions, and I feel like that's probably the correct answer. But if you've got a specific one that you want to go for,
that's all right, I guess.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Just like those standard deluxe editions are.
I think the epics are the way to go. I mean, I know I'm a hypocrite as I'm totally collecting the omnibuses behind the epic collections back. But yeah, no, I don't know why. I like the epic collections the best.
It's original. That's how they. Well, I mean, obviously they're recolored a little bit and touched up, but it's the original size. I mean, you can't beat it.
The Absolutes are nice, but I find them too tall.
I mean, I generally am not buying these to like, oh, this is the Absolutes are not my like, oh, time to sit in bed and read an Absolute. You know, I mean, these are, like Kevin said, this is more a work of art than a casual read.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've sat in bed and read an Absolute before.
Well, Charlie, for you, an Absolute's the size of like a paperback book for the rest of us. Okay,
Charlie.
Yeah, that Marvel's book and Eternals book is starting to get to like oversized hardcover for Charlie.
No, the main ones that I have trouble reading like that, and I've done this reading it in bed, and it was not a pleasurable reading experience. Would be like the Simonson Thor omnibus and stuff when it's like that big, that like there is a certain size of omnibus where I can't just read it very like in bed or whatnot. I have to be like, I'm sitting at this table reading this comic.
I have my reading podium that I open it up. Things were
no. That's why a lot of those really thick omnibuses, I've always either wanted them to just break it up into 2 volumes, or do what they did with like some of the Stephen King stuff and do like the slipcase with the 2 hardcovers. Like, I love the Stephen King ones because it's almost like this was the proper way to do this, and I wish they would do that for more of the just normal Marvel comics.
Too many comic books, too many good-looking comics. Not enough time to look at all of them. Toby, you hate the Avatar oversized hardcovers? I know that.
Oh, I fucking yeah. Despite,
Not your favorites.
Again, I'm a hypocrite because I totally started buying them when the rumors were going away, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need them. No, but I actually really enjoy the what they call the omnibus collection. I guess the
small ones.
The small ones, but they collect the 3 single issues into one.
Yeah.
And they got the what's it? How do you call it? The side art, like Dragon Ball. They have the little spine art. I think it's called. Is it called?
Yeah. The stuff on on the side of the book.
Yeah. I actually am a big fan. I know not everybody is, but I really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the way to collect those.
Yeah.
But yes. I think the Avatar oversized hardcovers are the absolute worst.
It's all that wasted space inside.
Yeah, that margin that like.
And it's almost like I want to take a scissor and start cutting the page. But no, I appreciate all the little extra footnotes, but when the majority of the pages are just empty, it's empty. Oh man, come on.
Yeah, it's real weird.
I like the.
Yeah, no, I agree that if you're going to go that route, you need to make sure that you have enough footnotes and stuff to make it worth it.
Yeah, then I'm all good, but the way they did it, I was like, oh. Yeah.
That's a weird one. Okay, that's a podcast. Thank you guys all very much for listening. Thank you for your questions. If you're a Patreon backer, don't forget there's a sticky thread in Patreon where we can leave questions. We'll get to every week. And, we're a little light on topics. We'll hit up Twitter and get some questions from our audience so you guys can hopefully get some stuff answered. And thank you for everyone that replied. Sorry if we didn't get to your question. Hopefully we'll get to some more of them next time. I have to thank our wonderful Patreon backers, Joe Duff, Jesse Peterson at the Comic Book Matters podcast, Jimmy Rivera at the Social Forum podcast, Andrew Nelson Mendez at Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast, and Craig Anderson over at ClearPathCoaches.com. Please check out all their work. Thank you guys for your continued support and everyone else that backs us on Patreon. Mm-hmm. Patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. We should have the new backer list and everything up next week, assuming Patreon gets everything finished by the 2nd. They might not. Usually it's not till the next week. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Please check out geekbox.net for all our previous episodes, as well as comicconspiracypodcast.com, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. You can head over to comicsconspiracy.biz, which is our online storefront. You can go buy comic books from us there, get them shipped to you. A lot of people doing that these days. Brock's packing and shipping all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, what are back issues? What are these things called back issues? Like,
I'm working on them, getting slowly. Our big monthly mail order goes out the next couple days. So if you're one of our mail orders,
God, it's the end of the month.
Oh, it's the end of the month, Brock. Have a few extra days of work for you this week.
Damn it.
Have
I forgot
for our monthly subscribers.
Night.
For our monthly subscribers, all your stuff's going out in the next few days, so look for some tracking numbers on that soon. Head over to conspiratobrock.com. That's Brock's blog. Pull us and unboxing videos. You can check out the stuff he does there. Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension podcast. That's Charlie's Doctor Who podcast. And Kevin's got Between the Panels at fanbasepress.com. It's a weekly series of interviews with creators, so go check out all his work there.
What would Beneath the Panels talk about?
The making of the paper that's printed on, the art of pulping paper. And LeanneHill.com, that is my wife Leanne's website. You can go check out all her work on there, as well as Etsy.com/shop/LeanneHillArt. That is where you can go buy some prints from her. If you're on Twitter, I am on there. Ryan Higgins, Ryan. Toby is Toby XI. Charlie's Insanity and Chaos. That Kevin Sharp is Kevin. The store is Comics Con Store. Brock, you got to give me the day. How many days?
111 days, I think.
111 days. Yep. Every day you count. You scar yourself.
Something.
Scar yourself like Zaz. One more day, one more mark.
I don't.
One day.
I sent my weekly.
Hey Jack.
Hey,
get Brock
what's going on?
At Brock Sager. Get him back on Twitter.
I think I just need everybody to go at Twitter support. What's going on with at Brock Sager's account?
Brock and My Pillow guy, My Pillow CEO, banned from Twitter.
Hey, I got banned for BS. He got banned for legit reasons.
Please go check out Geekbox. We talked about WandaVision this week. This is a recurring theme where our podcasts are very similar. And it's all practice for this podcast. And then Manga Nations are good friends over there that talk about manga and anime. Go check out their work. Okay, we made it through a podcast and power didn't go out. I'm not going to jinx it, so I'm going to stop recording right now. So I finalized this recording, and we're able to
end it at some point and then cut somebody off like it did. The power did go out.
Well, Toby disconnected at one point and Charlie came in late, so I already have some editing to do on this podcast anyway. I got to figure out what the hell is. I got to see how this all works. We'll see if this works. Maybe Toby's been actually not recorded for this entire podcast. We'll find out soon. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next week.